Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Null Presents. This is a Q&A today with Jeanna LeClair, our art director for Null Games. Thank you for joining me today, Jeanna.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Excellent. Well, thank you for making a little time to talk with us today. If you haven't seen previous videos in this series, we do a little Q&As with the employees of Null and talk about how they got started in games and what brought them to being employed at Null. So let's get into it here. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing and background. Were you born? I know you're Canadian. Were you born there? Have you traveled around a lot in your life?
I was born in Canada, Windsor, Ontario, to be exact. And then my dad was in the military while I was growing up, so I've actually moved all across Canada. He was posted abroad a few times, but yeah, so mostly all just around Canada. I haven't lived outside of Canada, but yeah, small towns mostly.
Yeah.
So that no one really has heard of, like Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, which is probably the smallest and weirdest. But yeah.
Excellent. My dad was an Army brat too, or Navy brat, I should say. So he went all over the world. So it's a peripatetic life, but it's tough. But it always has good experiences. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Yeah. How did you get started in graphic design? Did you always know that you wanted to be kind of an artist, or?
So I've always wanted to be an artist. Just from when I was little, I was always like painting, drawing, everything like that. Going into design was kind of like a happy accident. I knew someone at the time who was applying to the program, and they're like, hey, you should do this too. I was like, why not? I mean, I only had like 2 weeks to get my portfolio together and kind of winged it, but got in, absolutely fell in love with graphic design. And yeah, that's kind of where I got to. I was originally going to go into fine art and stuff like that.
Okay. I meant to ask, I was going to ask that question. Like, did you get started off in fine art? I don't know if it sounds like, it sounds to me that might be interpreted the wrong way. Like fine art is what artists should do, but I know there's a million different varieties of art. So I was kind of curious about the origins and how you got from graphic design to games. Did you always want to work in games? I know you started off in like a more product focused kind of company as you were starting out in your career.
Yeah, so getting into games was also just kind of like a happy accident or like circumstance. I've always just wanted to do graphic design in any kind of frequency. The more creative, the better. But I've mostly started out with more of like marketing focused in a corporate world, which is fine and cool on its own. But once I got into the gaming industry, it was so much more freedom, more creativity. I could explore more. I could add more of my illustration and art skills into it. So that's definitely where I tend to thrive.
So in gaming, I know any kind of marketing, you're going to have a million rounds of feedback from various stakeholders. Do you find that kind of process to be instructive or helpful to your creative process? Or do you find it to be kind of like you'd rather just do your own thing and have it be done?
Oh, no, I think collaboration from all the different stakeholders is imperative to get the right like thing at the end. So all feedback is always welcome. Yeah, because a lot of people and their different insights or the will help make something better. So something I wasn't normally thinking of is good to know.
That's good. I am not an artist or a designer at all, so I rely on Jeanna quite a bit for even like the minor kind of like font changes. If I had it my way, it would be Comic Sans everything that we did. So thank you for being over my shoulder when I'm doing anything stupid like that.
No worries.
Yeah. So you're the art director here at Null. You're responsible for all aspects of design in the company, from social media banners to website graphics to key art for our game developers. There's obviously a tremendous amount on your plate at any time. And I'm also have like organizational issues myself. And I was curious how you keep yourself organized in terms of all the different things that you have to do at any given time.
Lists. Yeah. I love lists. Just kind of at the beginning of the week, I write down kind of what I want to target and where things should kind of lie. And then just kind of go from there. I usually check in with people too, just to see if something's coming up, things like that, and kind of plot it in. And making sure you have a priority of what things need to happen first. I like working on things in tandem, but also still like get this one done, then this one, then this one.
This year so far, I've been doing a lot of calendar reminders for specific tasks, like blocking off half an hour at a time. Cause I do, like you have 20 different things I'm doing any given time. So I've been finding that very helpful, and I am always on the lookout. This whole interview series is basically me trying to find out how people run their day-to-day organization so I can learn from them. Everything else is all extraneous. So finally got the meat of the interview done, so we can move on to the fun stuff. So obviously there's a lot of different things that you do here. Do you have like a specific one that is your most favorite? Do you like working on key art? Do you like working on making a deck look really polished and good? Or is there anything that really sticks out of you as being like the thing that you look forward to doing on each project?
It's such a tricky question because
Yeah.
I kind of love all of it. I think right now my most favorite is definitely key art and logo design. I really like doing that, but I love also just making presentation decks is really fun and easy for me to
Yeah.
do. So, and like trying to explain a whole story, um, I really like doing that too. But yeah, key art right now is probably my favorite.
And for people who don't know, like key art is a very big term in the industry. In any industry, you
Mhm.
know, marketing for movies or everything that they always say key art. Can you explain a very short phrase what key art actually is?
Yeah, so key art is the main marketing imagery for a game or a movie or like, yeah, game or a movie.
A product.
Um, yeah, a product of sorts. Yeah, so it's the main imagery that you'll see. So it'll usually have the logo and then like a main character, something like that. And then it'll be translated to banners across the internet, different things like that, like end cards, video. Yeah,
Yeah.
it goes everywhere. It needs to be very modular and eye catching.
Do you I've been involved in a lot of discussions about key art in my career, and there's some rules that feel like they are meant to be broken, and sometimes like rules that are guiding because you're ultimately trying to make an image that is going to sell a product. The one thing I've always heard is that you should have a face kind of up front and center, which is kind of a lot of A/B testing gets done on the internet. Do you have like a guideline that you work on key art that you know you have to incorporate some kind of specific element that do you have like a checklist for that, or how do you go about that process?
I do, but I think it's more important to hit what you're actually selling because everything is going to be a bit different. So, and each game that we're developing is different and has its own kind of essence to it.
Mhm.
So, that in mind. But I think general rule of thumb would be logo needs to be the first read. And then after that, it will probably be the most important element that is relatable to the game. So, if that's like a main character, or if that's more of like the world that it's from, or if it's a monster, that plays into it.
Okay. In the last like 20 years, have you found that you're incorporating a lot more ideas about mobile, like readability? Because I know in my old workplace, my boss would walk across the room and take a look at my monitor from about 20 feet away, and said if he couldn't read something, he would want it to be redone. Is that kind of more of an issue now with mobile being forward for a lot of marketing purposes?
I wouldn't say it's an issue. I would say that it needs to be on the forefront of your mind when you're designing things. I think it's if you have a modular mindset when you're creating art, and then also just readability and contrast is always going to be your number one hierarchies of how to make good design.
Cool. Well, if you want to see some more of the key art, go to null.com/games, and some of that is there now. We're working on a lot of iterations for other games coming up in 24, but
Mhm.
you can find it all there. So one of your first jobs was working for a company that designed displays and other products for retailers. Did you get any fun souvenirs, and did you ever wind up with a display case or something to bring home? I was really curious about that job.
Yeah, yes and no. So I did get a gift from the sculptor who's there. His name's Julio. He sculpted me like a little like bust. So I really appreciated that. He's such a great guy.
Yeah.
So he gave me that as a personal gift of like, here you go. So that was one thing. And then in that job particular, they had a blow molding machine. So
Hmm.
it like squirts out like plastic and then it forms a mold. So I actually got to pull one of the pieces and form like a mannequin bust.
Hmm.
So I took home some plastic that's like a weird shape.
While we're
Yeah.
talking about it, I have a really weird question. I'm assuming part of that job is like market research. Is there like a definable edge in sales for like variety of mannequin, like headless versus headed? Do stores like incorporate that kind of like people buy
Oh
more
yeah.
stuff off of a headed mannequin versus a headed? I was really curious about it, just off the top tip of my tongue.
I'm not sure if like a headed mannequin versus a non-headed mannequin affects the sales. I think it's just depends on the aesthetic of the store
Sure.
itself. But definitely my favorite type of mannequins would be the articulated arms.
Yeah.
So there's like wood arms that you can move and position, especially with like all the fingers that can move. Those ones are always very pretty, and especially if they're done in wood, and then the bust is like in a nice fabric. Yeah, those ones were my favorite to style.
You seem like you're talking about giant size, like shadow models for artists, like those little tiny wood ones where they're doing the body poses and stuff. So I didn't know that they made those life size, but now I have to go. I have to go to my local mall and try to find one now. So after that, you worked at Ubisoft, and obviously a company the size of Ubisoft has a huge amount of design needs. What precisely were you doing at Ubi?
Yes, so I worked within the UCS, so Ubisoft Creative Services Department. It was a bit smaller. Most of them were all based in San Francisco, but there's also a few designers up in Montreal. I worked on mostly just the marketing for different games. So I worked on a couple different titles with an art director and a couple other designers, and did a mixed bag, but mostly banners and things like that, but then also print signage for places like GameStop and stuff like that. I also did a lot of the cover sheets to actually go on the game packages.
So you've also been a long-standing contributor to the Toronto Animation Arts Festival, and I was curious what that festival tries to show off to its attendees. I'm assuming animation.
So yes, lots of animation. It's called Taffy for short, so it's pretty fun and wacky. I'm actually no longer too much a part of it. I'll still be contributing as more of kind of like an oversight or kind of like idea maker. But it was a great time. I was there for over 10 years. I participated and volunteered. What they usually do is they have 3 events, 4 now per year, a film fest, a job fair, and an industry conference. So industry conference, they bring a bunch of different guests and talk about different like relative things within the animation industry. They also bridge into like VFX and a couple gaming things and stuff like that as well. The Film Fest, they like to feature Canadian films, but also all over the world. Films submit their shorts, different films like that. And then the job fair is the biggest job fair, I believe, in Canada. So for animation itself,
sure,
it's pretty crazy and busy. But
yeah. I'm curious because I know SF, the Bay Area, has a lot of animation. Obviously, Pixar is headquartered here, LucasArts, Lucasfilms, and then LA obviously has a big Disney studio. Does Toronto have like a lot of animation studios that work there, or is it like a hub?
It is. I think Ottawa has a lot more. They have their own festival as well. I was a part of I knew of the creators who developed Taffy, and they're like, hey, Toronto's bigger than Ottawa. We should make a festival for animation. So, and then it kind of like grew from there over the years. But Ottawa is definitely a bigger animation festival.
Okay. Have you ever dabbled in any animation yourself? Are you just a fan, or is it something that you're interested in and kind of doing at some point? I know it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. I have tried in the past. It definitely takes a different part of your brain to make it work. So it's definitely not my cup of tea, but I will dabble.
Excellent. Well, that was the last question I had for you. Thank you for coming on, Jeanna. I really appreciate it. And if you are watching this right now on the Null YouTube channel, feel free to take a look at some of the other Q&As we've done or look forward to more Q&As in the future. I'm trying to get my hand in both these sides. But thank you, Jeanna. Thank you very much. And we'll see you next time.
Yes, thank you. Bye now.